I mean, one supplement that's been the most documented supplement of all time ever is creatine. Creatine monohydrate is what I like. Documented for years and years and years. You can take this all the time. This is not an advertisement. I just happen to be filling my stuff. This is why you asked me at this time. Yeah, creatine. Men should take creatine. Women should take creatine. Whether you work out or not, you should take creatine. It is by far the most beneficial supplement ever. What makes that really challenging for me is that I found from a performance standpoint, like we're looking to perform at our best, generally when we're training and working out. Since I started taking Element, I find my performance is better when I train and when I perform. But if I had to choose, that would be really, really hard. The general health, creatine. For me, for performance and performance hydration, Element.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, the tricky part is the third Z for the past 3 years has helped my sleep. And I've been performing at my highest level and been getting better every year. I think part of that is getting great sleep. So, okay, if I could only take one, it'd be creatine. If I could only take two, it'd be creatine and third Z. If I could only take three, it'd be creatine, third Z, and Element. And if I could only take four, I would add whey protein because I need 200 grams of protein a day, and it's really hard to eat that amount of protein. So if I can get 50 to 60 grams of protein in a drink to help me top off my protein reserves, that would be great. And if I had four, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
It was already 4.
Oh, whatever. We're good. That's it. That's what I'm going to say.
Element helps anyone stay hydrated. Try Element totally risk-free. If you don't like it, give it away to a salty friend, and they'll give you your money back, no questions asked. Element is formulated for anyone on a mission to restore health through hydration. I'm super excited about the return of the Element Chocolate Medley. I love to have any of the chocolate medley packets at night before going to bed. Element is offering you guys a free sample pack with any order. That's 8 single serving packets free with any Element order. This is a great way to try out all 8 flavors or share Element with a salty friend. Get yours at drinkelement.com/Jason Grubb. It's only available through my link. You gotta go to drinklmnt.com/Jason Grubb.
I do not practice jujutsu.
Why?
I don't know. I don't have time to take up other things. You know, my hobby, my sport is CrossFit. And I think jujutsu would be awesome. Like, that could be next. That could be cool. Here's the things I don't do. I don't play soccer right now. I don't play basketball. I'm not like trying to play flag football as an adult or rugby. I don't ski. Maybe I would snowboard if I had access to maybe. But generally, because I'm in this sport and because I'm a competitor in this sport and like I've won 5 years in a row and I'd like to make that 6 or 7, all that, I choose not to take the risk to get injured doing something else. Yeah, other people might want to like diversify and like do other things, do other sports, and I think that's great. I think that's super cool. In fact, I've done like some triathlons and I'm doing a hyrox next weekend. So I see those as like fun things to do that don't put me at risk of not being able to do the sport that I am absolutely committed to and love. The more volume, the more lactic acid buildup. How do I deal with that? Yeah, I think really the question is mostly about how do you build volume? I think that's the ultimate question there. Like, how do you add volume? Well, you add volume slowly. And then with added volume, you often need to increase your caloric intake, your hydration or a focus on hydration, increase your attention to like recovery, making sure that you're recovering well. Recovery means like sleep, really, like sleep is like 90% of it. And then other things that promote recovery, whether that be cold plunges in the morning with like an ice barrel or sauna sessions or massage or body work or all those kind of things. But number one is sleep. Yeah, increase volume slowly. So that might mean adding a little bit to a training session over time until you've got a training session. If you're following like Boulder Athlete, for example, we have our base program, which is an hour long, and maybe you want to increase volume. So you might do that base program plus part of the compete track just to start adding that volume. Maybe do that 3 times a week. You do that for a month. And then, after a month, then you start doing the compete track 5 days a week. So now you've got that full volume in that early session. And, maybe you want to increase volume after that and add a second session. So maybe once a week you add a second session and you do that for like a month. And then you start adding 2 or 3 second sessions a week. You do that for a few months and really pay attention to your body. As you build volume slowly, your body will adapt, especially like I said, if you're recovering well, sleeping well, eating enough food. And that's the answer to the question of how to build volume. And I think in turn, it does train your body how to navigate that buildup of lactic acid. If I could only own one cardio machine, I would choose a rower, 100%. I mean, that's the first piece of equipment I bought for home. And it's just, you know, you get the best bang for your buck from a rower. Close second would be an Echo bike. I find that the Echo bike is one of the best fitness building machines of all time. But as far as versatility, if I only had one, I would row. You can do sprints, you can do moderate workouts, you can do long workouts. And that's one of the things that I find with the Echo bike. I'm not gonna often do a 40-minute zone 2 session on an Echo bike, but I could do that on the rower. I could row for a couple of hours. It's just something that I wouldn't do on an Echo bike. Number one, rower. And I know you didn't ask this, but number two would be an Echo bike for sure. And both of them are great for building additional volume without beating yourself up. Do I plan to compete until my body gives up? Do I plan to compete until my body gives up? Yeah, if I'm not competing in CrossFit, I'll compete in something. And then if I can't compete in that something, I'll keep competing in something else. Like there's no way around it. This is how I'm built.
How do I help someone lose weight if they're unwilling to track their food? I don't really track my food. So I think what you have to do is for like a week or a few days, you have to track what you eat, and you have to like weigh and measure, and then use Google or ChatGPT to calculate the macros from what you're eating and the total calories, and then adjust accordingly to find out where you need to be. So if you want to hit 3,000 calories a day and a certain amount of protein, carbs, and fats, you just kind of have to do a quick tweak, be able to measure that and hit that a few times, like a couple of days, and then just eat the same thing every day. Simple enough.
Okay, for people in the real world who don't do that or won't do that or can't do that, what is your...
So if you want to lose weight and you don't want to track macros,
how do you help someone lose weight if they are unwilling to track their food?
if someone is unwilling to track their food at all, I cannot help you lose weight.
Bare bones, here's how you can...
This is a great question. I mean, the question, we're actually, with the camera woman and me, we're actually having this conversation, like, you can't lose weight without some consistency. If what you're eating every day is just random whatever you want to eat and you're gaining weight, it's because you're eating too much. Okay, so here's what it comes down to. If you want to lose weight and not pay attention to what you're actually track what you're eating whatsoever, you're going to have to eat less completely. One maybe trick is to do intermittent fasting, like only eat within a certain window of time. That could possibly limit the amount of food intake. You know, another thing you could do is switch what you're eating. So instead of eating carbs like, you know, breads and pastas and rice, you could eat things like broccoli and sweet potatoes, which are carbs, by the way. They just things that fill you up a lot more. Like vegetables and starchy vegetables will fill you up a lot more than breads and pastas. So you could do something like that to decrease your caloric intake, because you're going to be fuller longer. And that would be one way without tracking what you eat to possibly lose weight. Eat more filling foods and less calorically, eat more, I don't want to say this, eat foods that are calorically less dense. So calorically dense foods would be like ice cream might be the most calorically dense possible food, or candy. Behind that, you've got like breads and pastas and rice. These are really calorically dense. Fats, super dense. So lots of, anything that has lots of fat in it is going to have tons of calories. So if you want to lose weight, eat less calorically dense foods like vegetables. Starchy vegetables, even potatoes and sweet potatoes, would be better options than calorically dense foods like pastas and rice, fats, those types of things. And the other thing you could do to stay full or to remain full or to satiate your hunger would be to make sure you're eating enough protein. And don't drink any protein shakes. Don't do anything that would be a shortcut. Like, eat the food, eat eggs, eat yogurt, which is a slight shortcut, eat chicken, eat red meat. Those kinds of things will cause you to feel full. When it comes down to it, look, the best way is just to track for a few days, make some adjustments, and then just kind of eat the same thing every day. Would be my best advice. What happened to Mayhem? What's the beef? I was a Mayhem athlete for a number of years, and I love those guys. Appreciated those guys. Was actually at Mayhem for a few months in our travels. At one point, we talked about me being much more involved in Mayhem athlete in the master side of things. And when that didn't pan out, I still had this strong desire to go all in and support masters athletes.
So that's where Boulder Athlete came from. Within a few months, actually just after the games in 2023, I launched Boulder Athlete to the public, and that's what we do. And we've got a lot of athletes. It's a lot of fun. Community's growing, and I think we're doing really cool things. No beef, they're great. If Mayhem's the right fit for people, that's great. If not, no big deal. Tips on a DIY cold plunge. First, I will give a shout out to a non-DIY cold plunge. I love the quality of the ice barrel. And the insulated ice barrel, 300 and 500, man, having an insulated barrel is amazing. Two, having the input and output drain for the water, especially if you're going to connect an external cooler or chiller, is just so nice. And they're going to last forever, and that's what I like about those. They're not DIY. As far as DIY goes, I think if you live in a cold climate, man, you can just get a horse trough, set it outside. I know lots of guys that do this and just go for it. Man, if 6 months out of the year, the temperatures are below 40 at night, you're good with just a big aluminum horse trough from like Tractor Supply. It's hard to drain them, so you actually buy a pump and that pumps the water out. So that's cool. Or two, you put a drain in if you're kind of handy for that. I know a few other guys that have used like Rubbermaid, like big troughs that don't live in cold climates, and they've put that in a shaded area, like under a deck in the backyard. And buy an external chiller from Amazon. There's some aquarium chillers that tend to handle the volume of water decently. I can't tell you if they get as cold as you want them to get, but it does a good job. As far as buying ice every day, way too expensive. Way too expensive. Even with an ice barrel that's insulated, ice just has a hard time getting it cold enough. So you want a chiller. And if you're a handy guy, I think an Amazon chiller, like aquarium chiller, and a big Rubbermaid horse trough with a drain, I think you can do it. But that's the two things. Need something that's durable, that's not inflatable, because those can just pop. I know someone that has had one break, and you need a chiller. I have a couple chillers that I recommend. They're expensive, but a cheap DIY chiller from Amazon could get the job done. The difference between the DIY and a professional setup like an ice barrel is that one's going to last a lot longer, in my opinion. Full transparency, I am sponsored by Ice Barrel, and I'm a huge fan of their products. I love their team. I can't say more good things about them. And I would say what I just said, even if I wasn't sponsored by them and have their equipment. Hyrox versus CrossFit. I think Hyrox is really fun, although if I was just training for Hyrox, it would be a bit monotonous, kind of like training for just a triathlon. You're doing the same thing in repetition over and over again. Now that's really cool. The fun part about Hyrox is that it's an event that you know exactly what it is and you can train specifically for that thing. I like that. CrossFit is a sport that you train for, and the competition has the known and the unknowable as a quality of the competition. You have to train in every possible way for whatever they may throw at you in any combination. I find that overwhelmingly stimulating and interesting. So that keeps me really engaged. But I think if we train for this, we can sneak over and do Hyrox just for fun if we want to, which I'm doing next week. Food prep companies, yes or no? For sure, yes. If you're busy and you don't have someone around that can cook, you burn a ton of your time in the given day cooking your own food. For me, if I'm home alone and my wife is out of town, I make my own breakfast and lunch because it's super simple. If you're wondering what I eat for breakfast and lunch, I have a video on that I just put out recently. But dinner is going to cost me like a half hour to 45 minutes just to prepare dinner and then eat it. So from a time saving standpoint, yes, to hit your specific macronutrients, that can be very helpful because they'll just lay that out perfectly for you. And did I say to save time? I think that was number one. That is the number one reason in my mind. Will I ever have a camp or workshop? Yes, very much so. And I have done that. And it's one of my favorite things. I don't have dates on that yet. There's a ton of travel in our lives over the next 4 or 5 months. And so one of the months that I'm not traveling 1 week of the month, we will schedule that. My question to you, leave a message in the comments. Would you be willing to come to Birmingham, or would you be willing to orchestrate something that I can come to you? It's just a question. 3 pieces of advice I would give Jason Grubb at age 38. 1, take it slow. I took it fast, and within a year bought a CrossFit gym. Did lots of things very fast. It was hard. It was the hardest job I've ever done. But take it slow. Like, I don't have to go as fast as I did. Part of me going fast caused like a slight shoulder injury when I first started, or it re-aggravated like an old rotator cuff injury. I bruised like one of my rib muscles trying to pull a rower like a crazy person. But the shoulder, that actually took like 6 months to get on track using like crossover symmetry every day. It's great now, but it was a little tricky back then. And it was just because I went too fast. Slow down, take your time. Number 2, stop drinking. Jason at 38 was still drinking 2-3 beers a night. Jason at 39 was still drinking that. Jason at 40 was still drinking that, and through the years. So I recommended that Jason, like, hey, life is so much better and your body is so much happier without alcohol, among many other reasons that alcohol would be nice to not have during that entire time. And then 3rd, buy Tesla stock. Hands down, put all your money in Tesla stock. That's the advice I'd give Jason at 38. How many people who I think are taking illegal substances to compete at the CrossFit Games? So I just did a video on this last week or 2 weeks ago. Turns out that of the masters athletes tested, 4% test positive over the history, going back to like 2017. And the same goes for individual athletes, team athletes, younger athletes in the indie division. About the same testing to testing positive percentage. So, I mean, honestly, I think very few at the games are actually using. For individual athletes to get to they all have to be tested after semifinals. I just don't think that they're doing it. I mean, I think there's some for sure. So let's say that 4% test positive. Let's triple that. Get aggressive and say like 3 times that many may be using. That would be under 15%. And in competitive sports, I think that's something that's there. I know this. None of my friends use drugs to get there that are at the games. I don't know anybody who has, except for guys that I've competed with that have tested positive. Like, I don't know anybody in my circle. And I know a lot of people. So I'm just kind of a guy that's like more like a glass half full. I think there's a lot fewer people using illegal drugs to get to the CrossFit Games than the general narrative out there, or the feel that people have. Look, 3 masters athletes popped this year. 3. And people got in a big, like, I can't believe all these masters athletes are on drugs. Dude, 3 people get popped every year. Like, every year, like 3 people do, but not more. So I don't use, I never have, never been tempted to. And I hang out with a lot of people that would answer the same question just like that. If you're 40 and you're feeling sore for multiple days after a workout, you're doing too much too soon. For masters athletes, you want to build up. Like, soreness is there. I'm sore in some part of my body most of the time, but there's only maybe 1 or 2 times a quarter where for multiple days I'm sore, and that would be something that was just, really extraordinary. So you're probably doing a little too much, too fast, too soon. Just dial it back. You're gonna be sore, that's fine. But if you're sore for multiple days and you're just walking with a limp or something like that, you just have to dial it back and reset. Set that trajectory in front of you out there just a little bit further. Like, it's okay if we just take a path that's a little less steep to get to the destination. How do I calculate my zone 2s? I just use the Apple Watch. I found that I don't need to get that precise in CrossFit or for like what we do. I don't need to have that highest level of precision. So the Apple Watch over time has gotten to know me, gotten to know my heart rate, my max heart rate, my resting heart rate, and it builds all of that data, builds a track record. Then it maps out my zones automatically for me. So it's interesting because my resting heart rate, my max heart rate is very different than some of my training partners. I've got a friend whose max heart rate is way higher than mine. His resting heart rate is way higher than mine. He's a very fit dude. So everybody is unique. For me, I am detail oriented in certain areas of my life. In other areas of my life, I'm not that detail oriented. For me, my zones, I let my Apple Watch do all the work, for better or for worse. At what point does class programming become not enough for progression, for improving? I mean, I think you can train in a class perpetually. You can continually improve in a class. You can always scale up. You can always increase your intensity. If it's a lifting day, you can lift heavier. So
A class is great if you want to be competitive in this sport. The sport is very challenging to be competitive in, and a class cannot cover the breadth of the skills that you need to practice, the capacity you need to build, and the strength you need to build. Olympic lifting takes time. Gymnastics takes time, dedicated effort. Building capacity, like what I'm doing right now, takes dedicated time. And a class doesn't have that much time to provide for you. So it really depends on what your specific goals are. If you want to compete in local competitions, you could probably just do class. If you want to compete in regional, national competitions, you probably need to train outside of class and do something that provides you that breadth of training, like boulder athlete. You want to compete at the international level? Do exactly what I do, which is boulder elite training. If you're looking to increase your volume, there's a great line on where to jump out of class and then do your own programming. You know, one thing that's beneficial about a class is that you have a coach there in a good quality gym that's going to give you feedback on movement patterns. So Olympic lifts, squats, gymnastics movements, you want to get as much feedback as you can from great coaches in person if possible. I didn't always have that, so I had to figure that out myself. I had to watch a lot of YouTube videos myself. So if you're in a class with a great coach, like, eat all that up. Get your Olympic lifting dialed in. Make it great. Develop those high-level gymnastic skills while you have resources with you. And once you have a good amount of that in the space that you're in, then it might be time to add something else where you could go to an open gym, and if there's ring muscle-ups or bar muscle-ups or squat snatch, like, you're proficient at those and you can do those. That would be my path to navigating that.
So how do I train through injuries? We don't want to agitate an injury. If we've already taken a step back, we don't want to take like multiple steps back. But I generally think of an injury as an opportunity to work on other things. So an example would be if my calf injury after the CrossFit Games became something that was chronic, I would need to have taken time off from running or jumping or bounding to let that calf heal. And I would have focused more on some upper body stuff or some core stuff. So maybe I'd focus on upper body pulling and pushing and get really good at that. The idea is that you're going to specialize in working on other parts of your body or other movement systems and get really good at them. Like, it might be a great time to work on ring muscle ups if I can't jump. And I don't even need to jump to get on the rings. I can use a box to get up on the rings and work on ring muscle ups or work on bar muscle ups or work on chest to bar, toes to bar, pushing it, bench press, push-ups, handstand push-ups. So many things that I could do if I can't use my calf. And so I think Greg Glassman wrote an article about this in the CrossFit Journal years ago about taking an opportunity when you have an injury to lean into those other areas that might need improvement. So I think that's kind of what you do. And then with the injury, do what you need to do to take care of that particular injury. If that means doing some body work or getting physical therapy, doing mobility, whatever it is, don't ignore that. It may not get better on its own, so address that. But as far as your training goes, just lean into other movement patterns. If there's only one thing I could pick for beginners to start working on, diet, training, sleep, boy, that's really tough. I think you have to nail your sleep. That is just the number one thing. You've got to nail your sleep. And I'm talking as a guy that did not get good sleep last night. You've got to nail your sleep, get that dialed in. Then I think it's nutrition. I think nutrition is the next piece. You can't out-train a bad diet. So if you can dial in that nutrition, you could make some serious headway in your life. And when you start to do those things, like you start sleeping better and you start dialing in your nutrition, meaning you're paying attention to what you eat and you're doing that seriously. You're not just kind of half-assing it. You're actually doing it seriously. That momentum will likely lead to you start being more active in life. So maybe it's more active in life. Maybe you're taking walks or runs, or you're starting to train. You're starting with something really light and simple so you can develop the habits and the systems to then take that and start to increase your effort into that. But if you could get sleep and nutrition dialed in, then training, that's what we do. Okay, so the favorite place that I've trained has to be in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So in our RV, we took 2 trips to the Outer Banks, and we spent about a month in the Outer Banks, 100 meters from the ocean. And that was a really fun place to train. It was warm always. There was a really nice flat loop that I could run. There was almost always a spot next to us or across from us that was open so I could take my pull-up rig over there to do back squats, pull-ups, muscle-ups, all that kind of stuff. All my training, I could do whatever I wanted to do with training except for ring muscle-ups and GHD sit-ups, I could do them just outside of our RV. The other thing that was really nice was that a CrossFit gym was like 45 minutes away in either direction. So I didn't even have those as options. I had to train on my own with what I had. And I just have some really fond memories of training there. And the second place we stayed at outdoor had a pool with a 50-foot lap swimming area. It was a huge pool that kids played in, but there was one part of it that was kind of rectangular, and it had this lap swimming area. So I could even swim or do swim sessions there. And it was very, very cool. Get up, work out, work, hang out on the beach, take walks on the beach, play in the ocean with the kids, work out. That's the life. How do you make gains as a lean person who's trying to pay attention to your health? The question was about but has increasing A1C. Well, I don't know what to do about the A1C. I have no idea. But if you're a lean person and you're looking to build strength, you're gonna probably have to gain a little bit of weight, probably have to eat a little bit more. In order to get stronger, you have to work on developing strength, right? You have to do the movements that develop strength. And to support that process, you have to need to eat a little bit more. As far as eating more, it just generally means you need to eat a little bit more protein and probably a few more carbs to help with that muscle repair and to help fuel those workouts so that you can actually push yourself to that point where you're gaining strength in that process. So I talk with a lot of people that want to lose some weight and get stronger at the same time. And sometimes that can happen. Look, if you're losing huge amounts of weight, you can be getting stronger at the same time. But if someone is a male, 5'10", 170 pounds, and they're super lean, and they want to lose a little bit of weight but get stronger, that math doesn't really work. For me, last example, I went to the CrossFit Games in 2018. I weighed 185 pounds. It was the leanest I'd ever been, slightly under eating, 185 pounds. And I was good at most of the events, but I was not good at the strength events. I was just too light. I wasn't strong enough. So I started eating more food, training a bit more on the strength side of things. In 2019, I went to the CrossFit Games weighing 192 pounds, was okay on the strength stuff, but still not great. And I'm still not the strongest in my field, definitely not even close to it. But now the last 4 CrossFit Games that I've won, I've been at around 200 pounds, 202 pounds. I'm fairly strong for me, stronger than I've ever been historically. And that's just taken gaining a little bit of weight, gaining some muscle, eating enough food to support that growth. And at 200 pounds, I am the heaviest athlete that I've been, but I can also run, I can do gymnastics, and I can lift now, which is really nice. For a total week of training, how many days do I take as active recovery? How many are rest days? So for me, I train Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, double sessions. Thursday is an active recovery day. If I'm training for a competition, I use Thursday as a swim day. If I think that competition is gonna have swimming, which I'm doing today, it's Thursday. Friday is a double session, Saturday, single session, Sunday, full rest day. So generally for me, it's 5 training days, 1 active recovery day, 1 rest day. Does my nutrition coaching program have cheat meals? Sure. Yeah, it's fine. I generally don't think about cheat meals as like, hey, I'm just gonna go destroy my week worth of eating. So let's say I'm in a 500 calorie deficit every day of the week, right? And on Saturday, I have a cheat meal that goes about 2,000 calories above my caloric intake. I've just negated most of the week. What I'm generally looking for is a solid weekly average. If I'm going for 3,500 calories in deficit in a week, it doesn't have to all be day by day. It can go like this a little bit. But what I generally try to do, instead of thinking of cheat meals as like extra, I tend to budget for cheat meals. So if I'm gonna go out to dinner on a Saturday night and I know I'm gonna have pizza, I'm probably gonna undereat earlier in the day and make sure that I am pretty low on my calories. I'm also gonna pregame by eating a good amount of protein before going out to dinner, and then I'll go out and have a moderate amount of pizza, which would be a cheat for me. But the net of all that is that I underate earlier, I'm getting a little more calories in that pizza right there, and I'm making sure that I hit all my protein goals for the day. So that's how I generally manage cheat meals. Know what the budget is, know what I'm gonna eat, adjust the budget accordingly. If I'm gonna spend more money on a weekend, I'm gonna save money during the week so that I can spend there. But I'm not gonna save, and then overspend on the weekend. Is that a fair analogy? How do I typically recover from a multi-day, multi-event competition? I generally take a day off for every day of competition. So if the competition is 4 days long, I will take 4 days of rest and recovery after that. Maybe a walk
on those days, but really very little activity, maybe some mobility, but I'm not trying to do anything crazy during those 4 days. And even on that 5th day, I'm gonna ease my way back in. So at the CrossFit Games this year, 4 days of competition, felt great. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday took as rest days, took some walks. I think on Wednesday I did like 20 minutes on the bike, nice and easy. So I went in on that Friday to train at like 60% effort, and I was still not necessarily beat up, but like just getting into the workout at 60% effort, I was just dead. It was so crazy that a week before I was the top athlete in the world. And by Friday of that week, I just felt dead. So pay attention to your body. On that 5th day, yeah, I did like 60% of the work. It's okay. Saturday, I started to ramp up a little bit again. By the following Monday, a full week after the competition, I felt great. Good to go. All right, guys, there were a few other questions in there. I'll do this again. I really enjoyed this. I loved the variety of the questions. I loved trying to be as honest and spontaneous with the answers as possible. None of these were edited. I didn't take any like take twos of these answers. So that's the raw version of my answers. I'll do this again. So if I didn't answer your question, save that question for the future or leave it in the comments here, and I'll pull from these comments when I do another Ask Me Anything in the future. As always, guys, your best days are ahead of you. Fortune favors the bold. See you next time.